Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny, and today we're going to be doing the Midyear Freakout book tag. This will be my second time participating in this tag, so I will link the first video for you guys below if you would like to check that out. If you guys have your own channels and you do this tag, please let me know. I would love to check out your videos. If you don't have your own channel but you still would like to answer the questions, I would love to chat with you guys about any of the prompts in the comments. I will list all of the prompts for you guys as well in the description, so without further ado, let's get started. Prompt number 1 is the best book of the year so far, and I did have a really hard time picking this. There were a couple that I was fighting between, and I ended up going with The Magician's Daughter. I really love this book, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, so it's a little bit underhyped in my opinion, and I've talked about it a lot on my channel, so I won't give you guys a ton of information, but you follow Biddy, who is a young girl who was orphaned or abandoned on an island with a magician, and the magician helped raise her and keep her safe, and the island that she lives on is magical, and it is hidden from the rest of the world. The rest of the world has magic, but in very limited supply, and really only the rich and the noble, the lucky, essentially have access to the magic. Rowan is the magician on the island that is taking care of her, and he leaves every night to go and get supplies to, provide for him and Biddy and his familiar Hutch and Croft. And Rowan one night doesn't come back, and so Biddy is bound and determined to figure out what happened to Rowan and help him, and this allows her to see kind of the new world, the world that she's never been a part of, and it's just such a heartwarming story. I really enjoyed it, and I wish more people would read it. Prompt number 2 for this is the best sequel of the year so far. So this one, I didn't really have to think a lot about it because it was the absolute perfect sequel, and this is The Tropic of Serpents. I don't know if you guys can see that title. This is the second book in the Memoirs of Lady Trent. I really had a lot of fun with this. I've talked about this series a lot on my channel as well. It follows Lady Trent, who is a documenter of dragons and has kind of had to forge her own path because it is not a common profession for women to have. It's really not a common profession for anybody to have. Dragons are highly unstudied whenever she was a young girl, and these books are her memoirs of how she got to be the famed Lady Trent. And so they're a lot of fun. They're very wholesome, very cozy vibes. I kind of have my top 2 books as far as the first 2 prompts are very cozy and very wholesome. So I really, if you haven't picked up the Memoirs of Lady Trent, I highly recommend. Prompt number 3 is new releases that I haven't gotten to yet. So in order for this video not to be super lengthy, I'm just going to give you guys very brief descriptions, but if you have questions about any of them, please let me know in the comments. I would love to chat with you guys. Number 1 is Fourth Wing, which is a YA fantasy novel about dragons. Number 2 is The Crane Husband, which is a fantasy horror novel by one of my favorite authors, Kelly Barnhill. Number 3 is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, which is a fantasy pirate story, which I'm really excited about. It's on my 5-star predictions. Number 4 is Perilous Times, which is a King Arthur retelling-esque, I think. I think they pull King Arthur into the modern world and he has to figure out how to live in the modern world. I believe it's satire. And number 5 is The Road to Roswell, which is supposed to be a rom-com involving aliens. Prompt number 4, my most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. So similar to number 3, I'll give you guys 5 rapid fire with brief descriptions, but if you guys have questions about any of these, please let me know in the comments. Number 1 is Labyrinth's Heart, which is the 3rd book in the Rook of the Rose series, which is a Venetian fantasy story involving thieves and nobles. Number 2 is Moon of the Turning Leaves, which is the sequel to Moon of the Encrusted Snow. I am buddy reading this with Jolene over at Bookworm Adventure Girl. It is an apocalyptic story, and I believe the sequel takes the original world and we see the future of that world. Number 3, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. This is the sequel to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which was a very cozy story about a woman who is trying to document all the different types of fairies in the world. Number 4, Wild Spaces, which is a coming-of-age horror novel where a boy's estranged grandfather shows up and odd things start happening to the boy. And number 5, Ghost Station. This is a book by the author of Dead Silence, which I just read with Leandra, and we really enjoyed the imagery of the book and the creepy storyline of Dead Silence, which was like Titanic in space, and so I'm excited to see more from this author. Prompt number 5 is the biggest disappointment, and this is probably the one I'm going to get the most hate for because this is a beloved book, but my most disappointing read so far this year is The Sword of Kaigen. I won't get into all of the reasons that this is my biggest disappointment. I will link the video where I talked about that. I gave this a 2.5 star. I do not by any means think that this is a bad story, but my biggest qualm with this book is that everyone talks about it like it's a standalone, and it's not supposed to be a standalone. You can tell by the way that it was written. It was originally supposed to be a series, and yes, that is absolutely the author's decision to choose to continue in a world or choose not to. But with how many loose ends there were at the end of the story, I think that gives people a false premise of that this book is going to be, one and done, and you're not going to have any questions at the end. And I just don't think that that's how it worked out. I loved the first half of this book. I thought the first half was absolutely amazing, but it fell short for me in the second half. Prompt number 6 is the biggest surprise. For me, this would be The Children on the Hill. I ended up gravitating towards this because it is a Frankenstein-inspired story, and I really enjoyed The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein last year, and so I wanted to pick up something else that was Frankenstein-esque, and this just blew me out of the water. I had so much fun with this story. You have a dual timeline. I did talk a lot about this in a previous video, so I will link that if you guys are really interested in this book, but I'll give you just a brief description. It's dual timeline. You follow some children who are living with their grandma, and their grandma brings a mysterious young girl home with them, and they have to kind of figure out, why this person is there and what brought them to be there and the mysteriousness around them. And then you also follow a person in the future, one of the children in the future, and they are now a monster hunter. Think like Loch Ness Monster, and they have a podcast. They travel the country, and they are getting mysterious emails from someone who is telling them that girls are going missing, and they have to solve that mystery, and then the stories kind of collide. I thought that this was a lot of fun, and I look forward to reading more from this author. Prompt number 7, which is new favorite author. So for me, I have to read multiple books by an author before I can deem them a favorite, and this year I think that Marie Brennan is going to make that list. So this is The Tropic of Serpents. The Memoirs of Lady Trent is by Marie Brennan, but Marie Brennan is also a co-author in the Rook and the Rose series, which I've really enjoyed. I've also read several other things by her, and I just really enjoy the worlds that she creates, and I will probably read at this point anything that she puts out. I have 2 honorable mentions on this because I haven't read anything else by these authors, but I do think that they have potential to become a favorite author of mine, and one of those is H.G. Perry, which is from The Magician's Daughter, which is my best book of the year, and then also Catherine Addison, who wrote The Goblin Emperor. I really enjoyed that book, and so I'm going to continue on with both of those authors' works, and we'll see from here if they end up on my favorite authors list at the end of the year, or maybe on the Midyear Freakout tag for next year. Number 8 is New Fictional Crush. This prompt is always hard for me because I don't read that many things that have romances in it, and if they do, I more am interested in the relationship between the characters than I am just one person. But if I have to choose, it would be an old favorite. So it doesn't really follow the prompt because it's not new, but it's a read that I've read this year. It's a reread, and that would be Eland Venture from Mistborn, which is funny because Brandon Sanderson does not write romance well. I think that's a known thing, that he doesn't write relationships and spice at all. He writes relationships, so not spice. But when I was reading Mistborn again, The Final Empire, the very first book in Era 1, I was reminded at how sweet the relationship is between Eland and Villette. And just some of the things that happen, some of the interactions that Eland has, and the fact that he's just kind of clueless. And, you know, he loves books. He loves being away from people. Some of his personality traits, I just really fell in love with his character again. So if I had to pick someone, he would be it. Prop number 9, a new favorite character. For me, this would have to be Logan Ninefingers from the First Law trilogy. I absolutely loved his character arc. I loved his storyline. So if you haven't read First Law, Logan is a survivor. He is known as a brute. He is known as a killer. He is known as someone who takes life without thinking about it. So you wouldn't think like he would be someone that you really enjoy, but he has this soft side as well about wanting to change and wanting to be a better person, and that is the arc that you kind of follow and see his downfalls and his thought process of trying to be a better person. I really enjoyed his character. Prop number 10, a book that made you cry, and for me, this would be Ragged Company. You guys will have just heard about this on my previous video, so I will link that for you guys. Ragged Company follows 4 homeless individuals who take shelter in a theater on a really bad winter storm, and you follow their lives and their relationships, and you get to learn their backstories throughout this book, and some of their stories are just all of their stories are heart-wrenching, but yeah, this book definitely made me cry. Prop number 11, a book that made you happy. For me, this would have to be Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This book was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. It's very cozy, but not without its dangers and not without its gripping world and kind of, you know, nefarious things that can happen in the world that you learn about, but you learn about it in, I don't know, it's such a wholesome book. I really enjoyed the comparison and the contrast between Emily and Wendell. Emily, at the beginning of the book, whenever you first get to know her, Shirley does not like people. She wants to focus on her work. She wants people to leave her alone. And Wendell is very much the opposite. He's the life of the party. He loves people. He loves to talk and socialize. And he doesn't seem to take work very seriously. And so to see them in the world with the Fae and some of the dangers that they pose it was just a great story. Prop number 12 is the most beautiful book that you've purchased this year, and I did participate in the Year of Sanderson, and so I was able to get the beautiful editions of, currently I have Secret Project number 1 and Secret Project number 2, which is Tress of the Emerald Sea, and the Frugal Wizard's Guide to Medieval England is the second one, and I absolutely love this edition of Tress. With the gold foiling on front and the back and the side, but it's also illustrated. The end papers are beautiful. The inside, even the pages that aren't illustrated have this, oh, I don't know that you guys are gonna be able to see that, but it has like just beautiful coloring and beautiful text. The illustrations are just fantastic. And I just really, I think that this is the most beautiful book that I have purchased this year. Although I have made some purchases of some books that are very pretty as well, or some other purchases, I should say. I bought Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I really enjoy the fact that everything's printed on the hardcover, which I guess, I mean, it's the same thing for the Tress book. But so there were some this was a competition of the most beautiful books, but I definitely think that this one wins. The last prompt is books that I still need to read, and there are a lot, so I'm not going to keep you here all day. Once again, I will list out 5. There are going to be 3 from my own physical collection and then 2 that are not on my physical collection. If you guys have watched any of my previous videos where I talk about the fact that I do not own a lot of physical books, what you see is pretty much the books that I own. Whenever I enjoy a book, I buy it. And so I tend not to buy a physical copy. I might buy ebooks, but I tend not to buy physical copies of books unless I absolutely love them, because my dream is to have a home library where if someone walks in and says, which of these do you recommend? I can say all of them. So the that is one of the things that I strive to kind of keep. I want to make sure that my physical TBR stays relatively small. So currently my physical TBR is 12 books. So I own 12 books that I have not yet read. And so I'm going to list 3 books of that physical TBR that I would like to read before the end of the year, and then 2 books that I do not own yet that I would like to read. One of those 3 books on my physical TBR is actually 6 books. This is the H.P. Lovecraft collection, and it has 6 works and other stories mixed in that I would like to read. So 6 of the books on my physical TBR are on this list that I would like to read prior to the end of the year. I have not read any of H.P. Lovecraft's work, and I would really like to get into more horror, and I know that there are horror novels, lots of horror novels that take inspiration from H.P. Lovecraft's work. And so I would like to see what that reference material is for the horror genre that I would like to get more into. Next on my physical TBR is Vita Nostra. I honestly don't know much about this book other than it's weird, is what I've been told, which I like weird books, and so I'm excited about that. I believe it involves a young girl who ends up going to a school, and there are some weird things that are happening at the school, but to be honest, I could be completely wrong. So I am excited to get to this. I found this at a half-price bookstore, and it was really cheap, so I picked it up because I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and yeah, so this is another one on my physical TBR. And the last book on my physical TBR that I would like to get to by the end of the year is Daughter of the Pirate King. This is a Trisha Levenseller. Trisha Levenseller is one of my favorite authors. All of her books have been they feel nostalgic to me. I've talked about her books before. They're very cozy, even though they're not always in cozy environments. This is about a young girl who is the daughter of the Pirate King, and she gets herself kidnapped by another crew so she can search their ship. That's all I know about it, but I'm excited to get to this one. The 2 books that I would like to read prior to the end of the year that are not on my physical TBR are Eclipse the Moon, which is the sequel to Hunt the Stars, and the 3rd book in the series, I think it's called Capture the Sun. I'll put it up on the screen so you guys can see, but it comes out this year, and so I would like to continue on with the series, so whenever the 3rd book does come out, or maybe it's already out, I can get to it quickly. It is a sci-fi romance novel, kind of space opera-y, and I think you follow a different couple in each book. The first book, you follow a ship's captain and kind of another race that has some qualms with the human race. So the human race and this other race kind of butt heads. But a very prominent member of the other race comes and asks a human captain to search out something for him, and romance ensues. So it was really cute. I really enjoyed Hunt the Stars, and so I'm excited to get to Eclipse the Moon. And the last book on this list for the books that I'd like to get to by the end of the year is a memory called Empire. This has been on my TBR for a while now. It is part of my 23 and 2023, and the synopsis of this book really reminds me of The Goblin Emperor, and that's one of the reasons I want to get to it. That's not the reason that it was originally on my list, but it follows, so it's sci-fi. You have an ambassador that comes to, I don't know if it's a different world or if it's just a different place in their world. I'm not exactly sure. I do think it's in space though, so it makes sense that it's a different world. And their predecessor has died, and they can't get anyone to say that it was an accident, and so they think it was purposeful, and they're worried that they're going to be next. And so they have to figure out how to deal with that on top of the politics that are involved in helping support and represent their people. So yeah, it sounds very Goblin Emperor to me, but with less, I guess, fantasy and just more sci-fi. And I've heard a ton of people love this book, and so I'm excited to get to this one and add to my sci-fi books that I've read. That is the Midyear Freakout tag. So like I said in the beginning, if you guys have your own channels and you post your own videos, please let me know in the comments down below. I would love to check out your videos. If you don't have your own channel but would like to participate, please leave your answers in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.